If you don't find something that brings you joy and feel complete, then you're not done with your journey. Find what makes you happy. Keep going. My name's Jamie LeRoy. I am the mother of 4. My youngest, Charlie, actually has taught me a lot about speaking and sharing and how important it is when you have something that can help others. Charlie is a designer and actually founder and CEO of her own nonprofit. Charlie Designs a Whole New World, and we try to inspire people and mentor people, and it just feels good to be able to share our gifts with other people.
How excited are you about her ventures right now? She's involved in a lot of things. It's
It's
fun times.
evolving, always evolving. She's done over 50 shows and featured as a designer, from New York Fashion Week to North Carolina to Vegas. She's been a little bit of everywhere. And those kind of slowed down a little bit over this last year because she's been more involved with community work with her own nonprofit. She did a fundraiser on the runway last year where she had 8 designers donate a piece, and she actually was able to give back to the firefighters from that auction on a runway. We fed 250 people in Los Angeles last July, and we plan on making that even bigger this year. We do Christmas in July. She'll collect stuffed animals and clothes and food, and we did stockings with hygiene, and it feels good. Charlie's always been a giver from as long as I can remember. Teaching her to run a business, I hope helps her to realize that we have to pay our bills too, but still remain generous and kind. I think the kindness and generosity goes a long way. Um, she would she would spend time with new models before an event, whether they be 4 or 70, teaching them posture and how to walk and how to pose. And to me, that's a gift in itself. Just watching her give that joy to someone else and to give them that feeling of confidence and trust, and they always come back to her. That is pretty amazing. She's won awards last year. She won Innovator of the Year award in San Francisco. She won, or she was actually awarded a certificate recognizing her community service from the 49th District and the city of Los Angeles. She was asked to help with the youth in several different programs, but quite an honor to be talked to with the Universal Peace Federation, United Nations, and just feels like we're going to keep moving in that direction where she will continue to grow with her kindness and with her mentoring, and being able to give back. I don't think there's any end to that ever.
Proud mother of Charlie. How's that?
I'm very proud of Charlie. Like I said before, she actually teaches me. She's helped me learn things as we go. I didn't realize how important all the jobs that I've had throughout my life have led me to the point where I can help Charlie, and help her find the places she needs to be to move to her next steps.
You spoke about your all the jobs you've had. What does that say about your resume?
Years ago, I just felt like I wasn't finding the right thing. I'd work jobs, and each one of them gave me something, but I never felt like it was the end game. Like I never felt fulfilled with each job. So I guess each one of them gave me a building block.
Was it at any point were you embarrassed by it, by any of those roles? Was that necessary to have go through all those roles?
Oh, I think each one of them is very important. I wouldn't say I was embarrassed. I enjoyed every job. Everything I've ever done has given me something.
Share with us a little bit about growing up. How was your family like?
I'd like to say I had a pretty interesting family. You don't hear big families much anymore. I had 5 brothers and 7 sisters. We learned things a little differently. We grew a garden. The guys went to hunt. We learned things that a lot of people don't learn anymore.
How did that shape your confidence, having a big family?
I think that we all learned to be independent. We learned to be strong and to work hard for what we wanted. I don't know if it really gave me confidence per se, but I think it gave me um, a different perspective. I learned from watching my older siblings. A lot of times I didn't have to experience things in the same way.
What are the smallest things that your parents taught you and have lived through your life now?
Wow, that's a tough one. I know I carry a lot of things with me that my parents did, even just common phrases or just common things that they've said.
Growing up with 12 siblings, did you feel protected or invisible?
Dependent on the situation, I think that as siblings, we always looked out for each other to an extent, but I think that because there was so many of us, you felt like there wasn't as much time with mom and dad individually. At least I felt at times that um, I guess I just felt like I couldn't go to them because they had enough to do, or they had enough, all the time had things going on with that many kids.
Growing up, you were faced with some bad news. Can you share with us what were those bad news?
Yes, when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, she was given a year to live. I was not much older than Charlie at the time, and um, you know, you you want to do things to help and to support so that mom doesn't have to do as much. My older siblings had already moved out. So there was just a few of us there, and we really truly wanted to make it easy on mom, so doing chores and helping with the cooking. And I guess I learned to be more independent and more mature, probably faster than a lot of other kids did.
During that time, your faith grew stronger.
I think so. I grew up a little bit different when it comes to that as well. My mom and dad had friends that were, in the church. We had nuns and priests that would come visit us and, spend time with us as friends. I grew up with that faith.
Was your faith stronger before? I know, I believe you were 12. Can you walk us through that faith that you've learned to live with?
I think that sometimes when you face it, you're going to lose something close to you. I don't know if it makes you feel stronger in faith. I may even have questioned things for a little while. Um, you know, Facing that loss that I knew was inevitable. Um, I don't think I lost any faith, but I don't know if at that point if I had really truly gained faith. But that's something that no matter what we go through, I think if you have faith, it's always going to be there. You may have a few moments of questioning things at times, but we were given 15 years with mom. You know, 15 years. The doctors even said, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. So, I guess in a way, she wasn't ready to go yet, or God wasn't ready to take her home, one of the two.
So you didn't have a typical teenage years.
No.
Take us through your journey at that age.
Mom actually was doing well, and they had decided to move out so she could live in the country life a little while. In my junior year of high school, I had to make a decision, and I chose not to move to the country with my parents. I stayed where I was, and I was going to 2 high schools and working 3 part-time jobs and got an apartment. Actually, my senior year of high school, lived on my own, and actually my husband we weren't married at the time, but we had moved in, and that's when our relationship really, we knew we were gonna be together. It's been 30 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You said something very powerful. Everything that you've done in the past was preparing you to the next step of helping your daughter, Charlie. When did that click?
Probably not until just within the last couple of years when I realized, managing her and making sure she's in the right place at the right time and what things are going to be an advantage to her, which things will help her. But I think about through all the, running her business. If I hadn't done the accounting work or, all of the other jobs that I've had, each one of them had an element that helps me understand, what's next and where do we need to be and how to get there for sure.
Watching Charlie lead, what do you see in her that reminds you of yourself?
I honestly think of my mom more than I think of myself when I watch Charlie because she's a leader. I believe that she was born to help others find their way. And she even said she helps me. She does. She helps me as much as I help her. We learn from each other, and it's pretty cool.
In our conversation with Charlie, she shared with us her bond with her grandfather.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit what he represented to you?
Yeah, like I said, growing up with that many siblings, it was a little different, but to watch him with the grandkids is when he really came to life. He had over 50 grandkids, and I don't know what it was with Charlie, but there was definitely a special little spark there. Um, whether it be sharing a Big Mac on the porch or having an ice cream, he lit up. Just those magic moments of time, those you just saw the sparkle between the two of them. They'd watch old television shows together, and all of my kids enjoyed spending time as much as we could, especially before we moved. They all spent time with him, but there was definitely something connection there with Dad and Charlie.
How was your relationship with dad?
Um, you know, growing up, Dad sat in his chair. He'd come home from work and he sat in his chair and watched a movie. He didn't really talk as much. We all talked at dinner. We enjoyed each other. Time spent with Dad was nice, but it was usually in quiet. Um, we did say the rosary every day together as a family growing up. There were things that we did together, but again, it was a little different when I was younger than to see him with the grandkids. He was more almost like he knew he was allowed to be more himself as he got older.
As he got older, what was your role with the family?
With Dad,
With dad.
he developed dementia before we moved out here to California. He was in good health when we moved, but we still were taking turns, going to visit with him so he wasn't alone. My kids and I and Vince, my husband, would go. We'd take dinner and spend a couple hours with him, or take him somewhere. Just at that point, just the quality of time with him, as much as we could.
You said you moved from home to the state of California. So were you there when he passed?
No, we couldn't be there in person. One of the things that we did appreciate being able to share with Dad before we left, his dad came here from Ireland, almost perfect 100 years. And he traveled 2,400 miles across the ocean to start a new life. And so I explained to my dad that that's what we were doing. I said, just like your dad 100 years ago, we packed up and we drove 2,400 miles across the United States to start a new life. And he knew what we needed to do and why we were doing it. But he understood at that time. And we were here for a little while before he got sick. Actually, through COVID, and that time period was rough on everybody. But when he got sick, he did not want to fight anymore. It's just one of those things, and he was done fighting.
Not being able to say goodbye to him in person, have you made peace with that?
I don't know if I ever completely will, because once again, I didn't get to say goodbye to my mom in person either. So both times there was something keeping me from that final goodbye. But I think to me, I don't think grief ever ends. It goes through cycles. It's one of those things though that at times I'm glad I wasn't there in person because I didn't have to see what what you see. Um I still talk to them. To me, they're not gone. They're still with me, and someday I will see them again. I don't like goodbyes. We always say see you later. And I don't think that even if I had been there, I don't think I could have said goodbye. I would have said see you later. Yeah, for sure.
I'm sensing and I'm feeling a little bit that you still have a little bit of pain. Where did that pain come from?
I don't want to say I felt bad leaving, but at times I feel bad because I left. And again, maybe it's that I didn't get to say goodbye, but I can tell you I knew when we left that I wasn't going to get back to see him. I just knew it. And I think that that's part of it. Maybe I should have done more before I left, or maybe, you can't go back and change it. It's gone now. But yeah, there is always going to be some sense of pain and loss.
Grief can fracture families. You've chosen peace instead of bitterness. Was that a conscious decision you made?
Absolutely. Yeah, growing up with a big family, you think it's a beautiful thing. It's different sometimes. You don't hear of big families. But when something happens to fracture that, you do have to choose sometimes. And I don't choose. Charlie actually gave me a phrase at 3 years old: choose happiness, not madness or sadness. And we stick by that. I don't want to live in sadness or negativity in any way. So, when we chose to, I guess you could say, separate ourselves, we don't expose ourselves to the negativity that still lives there.
If someone feels like they've lived a scattered life, what would you tell them?
A scattered life, meaning like not
Meaning,
knowing what.
meaning having 30 jobs, 20
Okay,
positions,
sure.
how many siblings did you mention?
There's 13 of us.
13 of
Mhm.
you guys.
Mhm.
And then your own family.
Mhm.
What would you, what would be your
Honestly,
advice?
there probably is a purpose behind that scattered. If you don't find something that brings you joy and feel complete, then you're not done with your journey. Keep going. Find what makes you happy. And hopefully in the end you will look back and realize that each piece is like a puzzle piece. You needed each piece.
Do you find yourself sometimes when you see Charlie, you see your dad in your daughter?
Oh yeah. There's even a look that she'll give out of the corner of her eye. It's definitely that ornery look for sure.
Share with us that feeling. What does it feel like?
I love being able to see pieces of dad in all of my kids and even my mom. There's been pictures that I've actually seen pictures where you see in their body language. And that makes me very happy because, like I said before, I don't think they completely leave us. I think they'll always have, part of them will be with us forever. hmm
What do you hope your daughter understands about you someday?
I hope that each one of them, but especially Charlie, because we've been working together on so many projects, I hope that they understand how much we've done to help and support them. I think she does already have a sense of that, but I hope that she continues to stay humble and to always strive for what do you want? What makes you happy? In the end, you want her to do this for herself, not necessarily completely for others, but to do something for herself as well.
For yourself, what does peace look like for you today?
Having some time to relax and reflect, and I like to call it earthing. We just like to be able um to not be stressed out constantly or not be pulled in 20 directions, to actually just ground yourself.
Throughout your life, you've worn different hats, different jobs, positions. If one day there was a movie made about you, what would you want the movie to be titled, and what do you want that message to convey when people walk out of the theater?
I really didn't think about making the movie about myself, but, um, I guess ultimately just to know that life is a journey and you have to enjoy each step no matter what that step is, if it's pain or if it's sadness or if it's we're human and we need to experience all feelings. And I think that once you're able to put all of those pieces together, then you do realize what your journey is.
What would you say to those critics that criticize parents for having their kids be involved in fashion shows, social media? They feel like they're being exploited by their parents. What would you say to those parents to understand from a true a mother that's experiencing that right now with Charlie?
Sure. Yeah, we do hear things like that. And normally, I'd hate to say it, but sometimes it comes out of almost a sense of jealousy at times. They think the wrong things that, I mean, there's been many situations. But for example, just assuming things is wrong. We 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 do things differently than a lot of other people. That's how we're able to do what we're doing and get as far as we've gotten. If this wasn't real, we wouldn't still be doing this. It's been 6 years. And I still think that the bottom line is we need to listen. As parents, anybody as parents, we need to listen. I believe that if anyone has talents, no matter what those talents are in, that you should try your best to make sure that those gifts are explored. Let them be kids, but let them do the things. If they're a leader, let them be a leader. You step back and let them lead for a little bit. Let them try things. Let them try everything. Some of it costs money, so you have to wait, but but let them try things.
It seems like you're enjoying the ride along the journey of with Charlie.
I am very much so. Each one of my kids has given me something. And again, it's part of that puzzle pieces. I think that each one of them has given me something. With Charlie, I'm going to tell you, I used to hide behind the curtain, at the shows. It's her show. You let her do it. And for the longest time, nobody knew who mom and dad were. It was Charlie's thing. So I'm there to protect her and to guide her and help her. I was never really about taking the spotlight in any way. That's Charlie's. But now, as things have gotten a little farther along, they expect to see mom too. So, and it's good, and I've learned a lot with her, experiencing things with her. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Where can we find Charlie?
Charlie actually has two Instagrams, but the first one would be her Charlie Fashion Design is her fashion page. Charlie Designs a Whole New World on TikTok. Um, those are the two main ones, and then you can find her at Charlotte LeRoy on Facebook.
You mentioned she has a nonprofit.
She does. She does have a nonprofit. There's a website. And I'm really bad right now because I don't know if I can say what it is. It's a Wix. It's Charlotte Leroy. It's a Wix website. But she also has a Shopify, and that's charliedesigns.net.
Charlie in the future, 10, 20 years from now, what do you tell her?
That's a tough one. Um, I don't know because anything can happen in that amount of time. And I'm hoping she's still on that path of learning and growing, and who knows where her puzzle pieces are going to take her. She's got so many on the table right now. She could be doing anything in 20 years.
Exciting.
It's very exciting. It's always something new.